My daughter said I was losing my mind. But she didn't know I changed the will already. I was 71 years old when my daughter first began speaking to me in that careful voice people use with children and strangers. Slowly, gently, as if every word had to cross a great distance before reaching me. Mom, did you remember to lock the back door? Mom, did you take your pills? Mom, are you sure you already paid that bill? At first, I thought she was worried. That is what mothers do. We excuse our children long after they stop deserving it. Her name is Caroline. She is 50 now, polished in every possible way. Smooth hair, smooth smile, smooth lies. She works in real estate and knows how to make people trust her before they realize they have signed something they should have read twice. She had always been ambitious. Even as a girl, she never asked for one cookie when she could ask for three. But ambition can still live beside love. Greed cannot. I began noticing the changes after Harold died. My husband of 46 years had been gone only 3 months when Caroline started visiting every day. She brought soup I did not ask for, folded towels I had already folded. And sighed each time she looked around the house as though grief itself had become clutter. You shouldn't be alone in a place this big, she said. It was not a mansion. Just a neat brick house with white shutters and a rose garden Harold planted because I once mentioned admiring one in a magazine. But to Caroline, every room had become square footage. I'm managing, I told her. For now, she replied. That phrase settled over everything. For now. Soon she began correcting me in front of people. At the pharmacy, when I asked for my regular refill, she touched the pharmacist's arm and whispered, "She gets confused sometimes." At the grocery store, I reached for pears, and she gently moved my hand toward apples. You bought pears yesterday, Mom. I had not. At church, she introduced me to a woman I had known for 20 years and said, "Forgive her if she forgets names." I remembered every name in that room. I remembered the hymn number from the day I married Harold. I remembered the smell of starch on my mother's dress when she hugged me goodbye. I remembered the exact words Harold said the night Caroline was born. But memory is a fragile thing in the eyes of others. Once someone announces you are slipping, people begin watching for proof. A misplaced purse, a repeated story, a long pause. Caroline knew that. One afternoon she arrived with a folder and 2 coffees. She never brought coffee unless she wanted something. Mom, I've been researching options. I looked at the folder on my kitchen table. Options for what? For support, for planning ahead. For protection. Those words are dangerous when spoken by someone who wants control. She opened the folder and spread papers between the sugar bowl and the fruit basket. Power of attorney. Medical directives, property transfer forms. I'm not signing anything, I said. You didn't even read them. I don't need to. Her face tightened for one quick second before the smile returned. You're being emotional. No, I said. I'm being clear. She gathered the papers slowly, tapping them into a neat stack. You know, Mom, stubbornness can look a lot like decline. That was the first time I understood what she was building. Not concern, a case. After that, the campaign widened. My nephew Daniel called and asked if I was feeling all right because Caroline said I had become forgetful. My neighbor asked if I needed help with my mail because Caroline mentioned I was struggling. Even Dr. Levin asked if I had noticed recent cognitive changes. I nearly laughed. Instead, I asked who had mentioned it. He hesitated only a moment. Your daughter is worried. Worried people do not smile when you stumble. Caroline did. She came over one rainy Thursday and found me balancing on a chair to replace a light bulb. Oh my God, Mom. She rushed forward dramatically, hands to her chest. You could have fallen, but I didn't. This is exactly what I mean. I stepped down carefully. What you mean, I said, is that I still know how to change a bulb. She looked at me the way one studies damage. Then she said something that changed the room forever. If you keep declining like this, I may need to step in. Declining like this, because I changed a bulb. I began locking my bedroom door when she visited. I began keeping notes, dates, comments. Witnesses, what she said, who she told, what she touched, what papers she brought. Harold had taught me something important during our long marriage. When someone tries to rewrite reality, write your own version down first. One Sunday, Caroline invited the family for dinner at my house without asking me. She arrived with casseroles, flowers, and 6 people carrying opinions. My sister Elaine hugged me too tightly. "You look tired." Daniel watched me as though I might wander into traffic. Caroline moved through my kitchen like a hostess in a home she already owned. During dessert, she placed a hand over mine. "Mom, we all love you. We just think it may be time to discuss safer living arrangements." The room went quiet in that eager way families become quiet when they came for drama, and it finally begins. I removed my hand. "What arrangements?" "A smaller place, assisted living maybe, somewhere monitored." Monitored, I looked around the table, at people avoiding my eyes, at Caroline sitting in Harold's chair. Then I said very calmly, "Get out." Elaine gasped. Daniel muttered, "She doesn't mean that." "I do," I said, "all of you." Caroline leaned back, suddenly cool again. "This anger is another sign." "No," I replied. "This anger is a response." They left in offended silence, carrying leftovers and judgment. That night I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I called Mr. Hargrove. He had been Harold's attorney for 30 years. He was old enough to dislike nonsense and rich enough not to flatter anyone. When I arrived at his office, he stood to greet me. "Mrs. Bennet," he said, "you look sharper than most people half your age. I need to update my will." He studied my face for a long moment. "Trouble, my daughter thinks I'm losing my mind. And are you? Not enough to leave everything where it is." That made him smile. We spent 2 hours reviewing every line, every asset, every condition, every possibility. I changed more than names that afternoon. I changed leverage. When I rose to leave, Mr. Hargrove handed me a sealed copy. "Keep this somewhere safe." "I intend to." As I stepped onto the sidewalk, my phone rang. "Caroline," I answered. "Mom," she said sweetly, "I booked you an appointment with a memory specialist next Tuesday." I looked at the envelope in my hand, then at the sky clearing after rain. "That's thoughtful," I said. She sounded pleased. She had no idea the will had already changed, and she had no idea I was just getting started. The following Tuesday, Caroline arrived 20 minutes early for the appointment she had arranged without my permission. She came through the front door carrying authority the way some women carry perfume, strong enough to announce itself before they speak. "Ready?" she asked. I never agreed to go. She set her purse on the counter and gave me a patient smile meant for witnesses. "Mom, please don't make this difficult." Difficult for whom? For everyone. There it was again, the soft language of selfish people. Everyone meant her. Help meant obedience. Concern meant access. I poured myself tea and sat at the kitchen table. "I'm not going." She remained standing. "You need an evaluation." "No," I said. "You need one." Her jaw tightened. "Doctor." "Levin thinks it's a good idea." Did he say that to me? He said it to me. Exactly. For a moment I saw the child she had once been. Standing in the hallway after breaking a lamp and deciding whether tears or lies would serve her better. She chose tears then. She chose outrage now. "You are pushing away the only person trying to help you." I looked at her carefully. "You're not helping me, you're documenting me." Silence. Even she did not expect me to say it aloud. Then she laughed too quickly. "That is paranoid." "No, paranoid would be thinking you're trying to poison me." "I think you're trying to position yourself." Her cheeks flushed pink. "You know what everyone says, they say you changed after Dad died." "No," I said quietly. "I changed after I saw you clearly." She grabbed her purse. "Fine, refuse the appointment. But when something happens, don't expect me to keep cleaning up the mess." She left hard enough to shake the glass in the cabinet. Nothing happened. No wandering, no unpaid bills, no burnt pans. No confusion. I watered my roses, balanced my checkbook, attended church, and beat 3 women at bridge on Thursday. But stories spread faster than truth because stories are easier. Soon I noticed neighbors watching with sympathy, the kind that strips dignity while pretending to offer comfort. Mrs. Donnelly from across the street came over with banana bread. Caroline says some days are harder than others. Which days? She blinked. I'm sorry, which days are harder? Well, I don't know, neither does Caroline. I thanked her for the bread and closed the door. That evening I added another page to my notebook, rumor list, who had heard what, who repeated it, who doubted it, who enjoyed it. Grief teaches you many things. One of them is that loneliness and clarity often arrive together. 3 days later, Caroline returned as if no argument had happened. She entered carrying grocery bags. I brought food. I didn't ask for food. You shouldn't have to ask. She began putting items away in my refrigerator, organic yogurt I dislike, prepared salads I never buy, expensive berries already turning soft. She was stocking a version of me that looked frail and dependent. Stop rearranging my kitchen. I'm trying to help. No. You're rehearsing. She froze with a carton of eggs in her hand. Rehearsing what? Life after me. She set the eggs down carefully. You need therapy. I need my daughter to stop auditioning for widowhood while I'm still alive. Her face hardened. You think money is all this is about. I think money is part of anything involving you. She laughed once, coldly. You always preferred appearances over honesty. That struck me because it was Harold's accusation, borrowed and sharpened. He said that to you, didn't he? I asked. She looked away. Years ago, Harold had seen things in Caroline before I allowed myself to see them. He loved her, but he did not trust her. I defended her then. I heard him now. Caroline changed tactics. She softened her voice and sat across from me. Mom, I'm scared. What if something happens? What if you fall? What if you forget the stove? What if I do? You can't know. Neither can you. She reached for my hand. I moved it. Then she said the sentence she thought would corner me. If you have nothing to hide, why won't you let me manage things for a while? I smiled for the first time in weeks. Because only thieves ask for keys before there is a fire. She stood so quickly the chair scraped the floor. You are impossible. No, I said. I am inconvenient. She stormed out, leaving the berries. The next morning, my bank called. Mrs. Bennett, we received an inquiry yesterday regarding adding an authorized user to your accounts. We wanted to verify. My stomach turned cold. Who made the inquiry? There was no change completed, ma'am. But someone identifying herself as your daughter requested information. Was anything disclosed? Only that verification would require your presence. I thanked the manager, whose name was Sandra, and drove there immediately. Sandra was younger than Caroline, brisk and professional. She closed her office door. I'm sorry this happened. Did she say I was ill? Sandra hesitated. She implied you were struggling with memory and asked how to prepare for future access. Of course she did. I sat very still. Can I place restrictions? Yes. We can require in-person authorization and add notes to contact you directly. Do it. When I left the bank, I did not cry. I felt something cleaner than sorrow. Resolve. That afternoon, I visited Mr. Hargrove again. He listened without interruption. When I finished, he removed his glasses. She's escalating. I know. You may need more than a revised will. What do you suggest? He opened a drawer and handed me a card. Marion Cole, estate litigator. Ruthless in a civilized way. I tucked the card into my purse. I hoped it wouldn't come to that. He gave me a dry look. Mrs. Bennett, hope is lovely. Documentation is better. When I returned home, there was a note taped to my front door in Caroline's handwriting. Call me immediately. Family is concerned. Family. Such a useful word when people want numbers on their side. I did not call. Instead, I made supper, watered the roses, and watched dusk settle over the yard Harold built fence by fence with his own hands. Then my phone rang again. Daniel, I answered. Aunt June, he said carefully, Caroline thinks maybe we should all meet, just to talk. About what? Your future. My future is doing quite well without committee input. He sighed. She's worried you're being taken advantage of. I almost admired the boldness. By whom? A pause. Maybe by outside influences. Outside influences. Apparently competence itself had become suspicious. Daniel, I said, has Caroline told you she contacted my bank? He went silent. No, Has she told you she tried to have me evaluated against my wishes? No. Has she told you she has already discussed my house with a realtor friend? This time the silence was longer. Because that part was true too. I had seen the woman measuring my front porch with her eyes 2 weeks earlier. I didn't know that, he said. Then perhaps you don't know enough to advise me. I hung up gently. An hour later, headlights swept across my curtains. Caroline. She pounded on the door like urgency could replace permission. I opened it but kept the chain on. What are you telling people? She demanded. The truth, it's new for you, I understand. You are humiliating me. No, I said. I'm interrupting you. Her voice dropped low. If you keep fighting me, this will get ugly. I studied my daughter through the narrow gap, the expensive coat, the clenched jaw. The eyes that always looked most alive when winning. Then I answered in the calmest voice I possessed. It already is. She stepped back. You'll regret this. Perhaps, I said. But not as much as you will. After she left, I locked the door, wrote down the time, and opened the drawer where I kept the sealed envelope. The updated will rested beneath my insurance papers. Still untouched, still unknown to her, but I was beginning to understand something far more important than money. Caroline did not just expect inheritance, she expected surrender. And that was the one thing I had no intention of leaving her. The family meeting was held 10 days later without my consent, in my own living room. Caroline called it an intervention. I called it trespassing with snacks. I came home from the florist carrying fresh lilies for Harold's photo and found 3 unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see silhouettes moving about my house, as if walls and memories belonged to whoever entered first. When I opened the door, conversation stopped. Caroline stood near the fireplace in a cream blouse and the expression she wore whenever she wanted to appear tragic. Elaine sat on my sofa clutching tissues she did not need. Daniel was at the dining table with a legal pad. 2 neighbors I had not invited occupied my armchairs. And Dr. Levin, to my astonishment, stood near the hallway looking deeply uncomfortable. I closed the door behind me. What is this? Caroline stepped forward. Mom, please stay calm. Answer the question. We're here because everyone loves you. I set the flowers on the entry table. Then everyone may leave. No one moved. Caroline inhaled slowly, performing patience. We're concerned about your recent behavior. My recent behavior includes buying flowers and paying taxes. She ignored that. You've become hostile. Suspicious, isolated. I became private after being hunted. Elaine whispered, June. I turned to her. If you came here to help my daughter inventory me, save your breath. Doctor. Levin cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennet, perhaps we should all sit down. I looked at him in disbelief. You came to my house for this, he reddened. I was told you requested guidance. Then you were lied to, Caroline's voice sharpened. This defensiveness is exactly what we mean. I laughed then, not loudly. Just enough to disturb the script. You gathered witnesses so you could diagnose me in my own living room. Daniel raised both hands. Aunt June, no one is attacking you. You brought a notepad. He slowly lowered it. Caroline moved closer. Mom, we think you need temporary supervision. There it was, the true phrase at last. Not support, supervision. For how long? Until things stabilize. And who decides that? She held my gaze. We would. We, a dangerous little kingdom. I walked to the sideboard, placed Harold's lilies in a vase, and straightened the frame beside them. He smiled from the photograph the way he always had when he knew nonsense was happening nearby. Then I faced the room. You have 5 minutes to leave before I call the police. One neighbor gasped. Caroline's voice became syrup. Mom, threatening people is another sign. I stepped toward the phone. She stepped faster and put her hand over it. That was her mistake. I removed her hand 1 finger at a time. Do not touch me. The room had gone so still I could hear the refrigerator hum. Dr. Levin spoke first. Caroline, perhaps this should end for today. No, she snapped. She needs help. No, I said quietly. You need access. She spun toward me. Fine, let's talk about access. Who paid Dad's medical bills? Who handled paperwork after the funeral? Who has been here every day while you spiral. I paid the bills, I said. She blinked. With what? My money. You don't have enough. I almost pitied her then. She truly believed I had been decorative all my life. Harold owned a construction company, yes, but I managed the books for 30 years. I negotiated vendor disputes, refinanced properties, saved taxes, and quietly invested what men assumed I spent. Caroline had inherited society's favorite blindness, underestimating women who smile politely. I have enough, I said. Daniel frowned. Caroline said the accounts were strained. Caroline says many things. I turned to Dr. Levin. Doctor, since you're here, do I seem disoriented? He hesitated. No, do I know where I am? Yes. Do I know who these people are? A pause. Yes. Do I appear unable to make decisions? He looked at Caroline, then back at me. No, something cracked in the room. Not wood, not glass, authority. Caroline's face changed instantly. Well, of course she can sound fine for short periods. The neighbors exchanged glances. Elaine stared at her lap. Dr. Levin straightened. I think I should go. Yes, I said, you should. He left first, embarrassed enough to move quickly. One neighbor followed him, then the other. Daniel rose more slowly. Aunt June, I didn't realize. That is becoming a family tradition. He nodded once and left. Elaine lingered. I only wanted peace. No, I said. You wanted comfort. She flinched and went out without another word. Soon only Caroline and I remained. My daughter looked around the room as if betrayed by furniture. You embarrassed me. You assembled an audience. You forced this. No, I interrupted it. She paced once, then stopped. You're making me the villain because I care. You don't care whether I live well, I said. You care whether I die organized. Her eyes flashed. You think I need your money? I think you built a campaign around it. She laughed bitterly. You always loved Dad more. The suddenness of it startled me. We were no longer speaking of wills or doctors. We were in the old country now. Childhood wounds, comparisons, hungry years. I loved you both differently. You trusted him. You judged me. I trusted him because he earned it. That landed where truth usually lands, badly. She grabbed her purse. You know what? Keep everything. Rot in this museum. She marched to the door, then turned back. When something happens to you, don't call me. I met her gaze. When something happens to me, you'll hear from my lawyer. She left hard enough to rattle the frame by the hallway mirror. When the house settled, silence returned in layers. I stood very still. Then I laughed once, then cried once, then made tea. Grief is strange. It can sit beside relief without arguing. That evening, Daniel called. I'm sorry. For which part? All of it. I let him speak. He admitted Caroline had been telling everyone I forgot names, lost checks, repeated stories, left burners on. She had even shown them a photo of a scorched saucepan. I found out today it was hers, he said quietly. Of course it was. She said she was scared, he added. She is, of what? Not being chosen. He was silent. Then he said, what can I do? For now, nothing. But remember what you saw today. After we hung up, I opened my notebook and wrote 3 words. Masks are tiring. The next morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox with no stamp. Inside was a single printed page. Petition for guardianship draft preparation notes. My name appeared at the top. Caroline's handwriting marked sections in blue pen. Medical concerns, isolation. Financial vulnerability, resistance to family assistance. I read it twice, then a third time. She had started paperwork before the meeting failed. This had never been about helping me. It had been about replacing me. I drove straight to Marion Cole's office. She was younger than I expected, sharp-eyed, elegantly dressed, and entirely unimpressed by drama. After reading the page, she looked up. Your daughter is sloppy. That's good news. It means she believes intimidation is enough. And if it is, Marion smiled without warmth. Then she meets me. I handed her my notebook. Dates, witnesses, calls, bank inquiry, forced meeting, draft petition. She turned pages slowly. Mrs. Bennett, she said at last, how committed are you to ending this? I thought of Harold's chair, my locked bedroom door, my daughter's hand over my telephone. Then I answered honestly. Completely. She closed the notebook. Good. She slid a blank pad toward me. Then let's begin with what she doesn't know. I touched the edge of the sealed envelope in my purse. The will, Marian's eyes lifted. No, she said. The evidence. Marian Cole did not waste words, sympathy, or paper. She spent the next 2 hours building order from the mess Caroline had created. Every call, every rumor, every document, every witness. She wanted dates, names, exact phrases, locations, times, not feelings, not impressions. Facts. I appreciated her immediately. People like Caroline survive in fog. People like Marian carry wind. Has your daughter ever had access to your accounts? She asked. No. House keys? Yes. Years ago. Still, I don't know. She looked up sharply. You don't know. I never asked for them back. Ask now. She'll know I'm preparing. She already knows she's attacking. That was difficult to argue with. Marian made 3 immediate recommendations. Change the locks. Update all financial authorizations. Schedule an independent medical and cognitive evaluation with a physician of my choosing. Why the evaluation? I asked. Because if she files for guardianship, she'll wave concern like a flag. We answer with evidence. And if I refuse, she tells a story. We tell a report. By noon, the locksmith was at my house. His name was Victor. Broad shoulders, quiet voice, wedding ring polished thin by years. He replaced every exterior lock while I watched from the porch. Trouble with family? He asked gently. How could you tell? You'd be surprised how often I'm called for inheritance before inheritance. That sentence stayed with me. Inheritance before inheritance. When he finished, he handed me 3 new keys. One for you, he said. One spare, one for someone worthy. I smiled. That may leave one unused. That afternoon, Sandra at the bank helped me tighten every account. New passwords, new notes, no phone changes without in-person confirmation. No discussion with relatives, no exceptions. When we were done, she lowered her voice. For what it's worth, my mother went through something similar with my brother. What happened? She stopped apologizing. I thanked her more deeply than she realized. The medical evaluation was scheduled for Friday. Caroline called 12 times before then. I did not answer. She left messages that moved through every emotional costume. Concern, anger, tears. Threats, Mom, please call me. People are worried. You're making this worse. If outsiders are influencing you, I'll do what I have to do. By message 11, she sounded tired. By message 12, she sounded dangerous. On Thursday evening, she appeared in person. She marched up the walkway, reached for the knob, and discovered the new lock. Then she knocked, hard. I opened the door but did not invite her in. You changed the locks? Yes, how dare you? It's my house. I'm your daughter. Yes, I said. Which is why I waited this long. Her nostrils flared. You are being manipulated. By whom? That lawyer. Those people filling your head. My head seems crowded only when you're speaking. She stepped closer. You think this ends with a lock? No, I said calmly. I think it begins there. She stared at me, stunned less by the words than by the tone. Children do not expect their mothers to become separate people. Then she noticed the camera. A small new doorbell camera Victor had installed. Her expression shifted instantly. You're recording me. I'm protecting myself. From inside my purse, my phone vibrated. Marian. I answered on speaker. Mrs. Bennett, Marian said smoothly, just confirming the camera is functioning. Caroline's face drained of color. Who is this? The attorney representing your mother. I don't need representation, Caroline snapped. You're correct, Marian replied. You need caution. I nearly laughed. Caroline pointed at the phone. You're turning my mother against me. Marian's voice remained level. No, Ms. Bennett. Your conduct accomplished that independently. Caroline looked at me one last time with something close to hatred. This isn't over, Marian answered before I could. It can be if you choose wisely. The line clicked dead. Caroline walked away without another word. I closed the door and stood in the quiet hallway trembling, not from fear, from release. Friday's evaluation lasted nearly 3 hours. Dr. Naomi Pierce was warm-eyed, direct, and impossible to charm with theatrics. She tested memory, reasoning, language, attention, judgment, planning, orientation, processing speed. We discussed medications, grief, sleep, finances, routines, household management. She asked what I cooked this week, what bills I paid last month, who my neighbors were, what year Harold and I married, the names of presidents backward from current to childhood. At one point she asked, "Why are you here?" I answered truthfully. "My daughter wants my life reduced to paperwork." Dr. Pierce wrote something down and nodded. At the end she folded her hands. "Mrs. Bennett, grief is real, stress is real, but cognitive impairment is not what I'm seeing." I exhaled so slowly it almost felt like prayer. "What are you seeing?" "A competent woman under targeted emotional pressure." I laughed despite myself. "Can I frame that? When the report is ready, yes." Marian was delighted. "Excellent," she said after reading the preliminary findings. "Now we invite your daughter to make mistakes." "How?" "By waiting. There is a special cruelty in waiting when conflict has trained you to brace constantly." But Marian was right. People driven by entitlement hate silence. They fill it recklessly. She did not make us wait long. 2 days later, Daniel called. "Caroline is telling people you've joined some elder abuse legal cult." "A legal cult?" Her words. "Not mine. Creative. She also says you're rewriting the will because you're confused." That almost impressed me. Accuse me of the very thing she was doing. Classic. Anything else? She's trying to gather statements from neighbors. For what? To prove you're unstable. I thanked him. Then I called Marian. "She's collecting gossip," I said. "Wonderful. That is not how I'd phrase it. It means she still prefers theater to evidence." Monday morning brought another gift. A florist delivery. White roses with a card. "For all our pain, I still love you. Let me help before strangers destroy us." Caroline manipulation in cursive. I placed the roses in the garage. That afternoon, while pruning the back hedge, I noticed movement through the side gate. Caroline. She had used the old garden latch from the alley path. She entered carrying determination and a shopping tote. I straightened slowly. "You're trespassing. This is family property." "No." "It's my property." She walked toward the patio table and set down papers. "I came peacefully." "You came through the side gate." She ignored that. "These are assisted living brochures. Beautiful places, activities, dining, care staff. I did not touch them. You selected one already." "Someone has to be practical." "I am practical," I said. "Which is why I hired counsel." Her face sharpened. "You would waste money on lawyers instead of your own daughter." "I would spend everything defending myself from my own daughter if necessary." She laughed bitterly. "You always choose outsiders." "No," I said, "I choose adults." That landed. She gathered the brochures roughly. "You know what your problem is. You think because you kept Dad's books you built anything." I became very still. "Excuse me. You were a helper, Mom. Dad made the money. Dad made the decisions. Dad made this life." Some insults reveal more about the speaker than the target. Caroline had never understood the household she grew up in. Harold built structures. I built continuity. He earned. I multiplied. He dreamed. I prevented ruin. "You sound like a man from 1952, I said quietly. She sneered. "You're nothing without what he left." I looked directly at her. "Then why are you trying so hard to take it?" She had no answer. Instead, she stepped too close and hissed, "Because it should be mine." There it was, no veil, no concern. No trembling daughter worried for her mother, just appetite. The camera above the patio light saw everything. She realized it 1 second too late. Her eyes lifted, then widened. I said nothing. She snatched the brochures, turned, and strode out through the gate. That evening, Marian watched the footage beside me in my kitchen. When the confession played, she paused it on Caroline's face. "Because it should be mine," Marian smiled thinly. "People often save us the trouble of proving intent." She closed her folder. "Mrs. Bennett, if she files now, we bury her. And if she does, then she'll try something more personal." I looked toward the dark window. "What kind of thing?" Marian met my eyes. "The kind desperate family always tries next." Marian was right. Desperate family does not retreat. It changes tactics. 3 mornings later, I walked to the mailbox and found an envelope from Adult Protective Services. For a moment, the world narrowed. My fingers went cold. My knees weakened. Even the birds seemed to stop. I opened it standing at the curb. A complaint had been submitted alleging self-neglect, financial confusion, emotional instability, and possible outside coercion. An investigator wished to arrange a home visit. No accuser was named. None was needed. I carried the letter inside, sat at the kitchen table, and let anger arrive in its full dignity. Not rage. Not panic, anger, the clean kind. I called Marion. She did it, I said. Of course she did. You sound unsurprised. I'd have been surprised if she waited longer. What now? Now we cooperate completely. Clean house, organized records, medication list. Financial summaries, maintenance receipts, grocery purchases, calendar, and tea. Tea. Always offer tea. Calm people with organized folders are hard to portray as unstable. I almost smiled. By noon, my dining table looked like an accountant's prayer. Utility bills in order, insurance statements, tax returns, home repair invoices, medication schedule, charity donations. Bridge club calendar, church volunteer roster, bank summaries, a printed menu plan for the week because Marion insisted practical details matter. They need to see life functioning, she said. The investigator arrived the next afternoon. Her name was Teresa Molina. Mid-40s, sensible shoes, kind eyes trained not to trust charm or tears too quickly. I liked her immediately. Mrs. Bennett, she said, I know visits like this can feel intrusive. They can also feel educational. She smiled faintly. I invited her in. I offered tea. Marion would have been pleased. Teresa asked careful questions. Did I bathe regularly? Did I cook? Did I manage medication? Did I feel afraid? Did anyone pressure me financially? Did I know what day it was, who the president was, what year Harold died, how much my monthly expenses were, how my investments were structured? I answered all of it without hurry. Then I handed her Dr. Pierce's evaluation, then my account safeguards, then the documented bank inquiry, then the notes regarding the forced family meeting, then, finally, the patio video. I watched Teresa's face as Caroline said, because it should be mine. Teresa paused the clip. Who is that? My daughter. She sat back slowly. Has she entered the property without permission before? Yes. Has she tried to control your finances? Yes. Do you feel unsafe? I considered the word carefully. Not physically. But I feel targeted, she nodded. That counts. When she left, she shook my hand with both of hers. I cannot discuss findings today, she said, but I can say this. Some reports tell more about the reporter than the subject. After she drove away, I stood at the window longer than necessary. Validation can feel strangely quiet after months of distortion. That evening, Daniel came by unannounced. He looked tired. Can I come in? Yes. He remained standing in the hallway for a moment, ashamed enough not to know where to place himself. She's spiraling, he said. Caroline, he nodded. She thought the agency would scare you into signing something. Instead, it documented her. He winced. She doesn't know that yet. Then she should be careful what she does next. He rubbed his face. She's furious. Says you've poisoned everyone. I barely had to season them. Despite himself, he laughed. Then his expression softened. I should have seen this sooner. Why didn't you? He answered honestly. She sounded convincing, and people expect older women to fade. We mistake confidence for competence. That was one of the truest things anyone had said in months. He sat finally. There's more, I waited. She borrowed money. How much? Too much. From whom? Lines of credit, friends, maybe clients, I don't know. Suddenly many pieces aligned, the urgency. The property talk, the guardianship notes, the obsession with timing. When are the debts due? I asked. Soon, I nodded slowly. So this was not greed in the abstract, it was pressure with interest. Thank you for telling me. He looked miserable. She's still my cousin, and she is still my daughter. He met my eyes. What will you do? The same thing I've done all along. What's that? Refuse to become collateral. After he left, I opened the garage and threw Caroline's white roses into the trash. The next attack came Saturday. Church. I arrived early as always and noticed conversation thinning when I approached. Eyes shifted, smiles delayed, sympathy again, weaponized pity, misses. Harmon finally took my arm. June. Are you all right? Excellent. She said strangers were draining your accounts. She said many things. Another woman whispered. We're praying. Then please upgrade the subject. Halfway through service, Caroline entered. Late enough to be noticed, elegant enough to be admired, tearful enough to be dangerous. She slid into the pew beside Elaine and dabbed at her eyes during the hymns. Performance requires lighting. Churches provide excellent lighting. After the service, she approached me near the fellowship hall. Mom, can we talk privately? No. People nearby pretended not to listen. She lowered her voice dramatically. I'm begging you, stop letting those people isolate you. Which people? The lawyer. Whoever is filling your head. My thoughts have been local for decades. Her eyes glistened on command. You are humiliating me publicly. You chose public. She leaned closer. I'm drowning. There it was, not repentance, need. How much? I asked. She froze. What? How much are you drowning? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. She glanced around. We can't discuss this here. We are not discussing it anywhere. Tears vanished instantly. Cold, that's what you are. No, I said. Finished. I walked past her into the parking lot. Behind me, I heard whispers rising like birds. Good. Let witnesses work for once. Monday morning, Marion called. Adult Protective Services closed the complaint. I sat down. That fast, they found the allegation unsupported and potentially retaliatory. I closed my eyes. And Caroline, she has now created an official paper trail against herself. I laughed softly. Harold would have enjoyed this. Then let's continue entertaining him. What's next? That depends, Marion said. Would you prefer defense or consequence? I thought of the church tears. The bank inquiry, the side gate, my own daughter telling strangers I was unstable. Consequence. Excellent, she said. Then we begin with discovery. Meaning, we investigate her finances before she asks for yours. By Wednesday, we had enough to understand the outline. Late mortgage payments. Credit card defaults. A failed investment with a man she briefly dated. 2 clients threatening suit over escrow irregularities. And worst of all, she had already promised people she would soon liquidate family property. My house, my home, my roses, my kitchen where Harold kissed flower off my cheek 50 years ago. Sold in conversations before I was even dead. That night I did not cry. I went to the safe in my bedroom. Inside were the sealed will, old deeds, investment ledgers, and one envelope Harold told me to open only if family ever became dangerous. I had laughed when he said it. I was not laughing now. I opened it carefully. Inside was a notarized letter in Harold's handwriting, and by the second paragraph, I understood why he had trusted me to wait. Harold's handwriting had always been neat in the deliberate way of men who learned penmanship when mistakes mattered. Even seeing it again made my throat tight. I sat on the edge of the bed and unfolded the pages carefully, as though rough hands might disturb the years between us. June, if you are reading this, then one of 2 things has happened. Either I died before I could explain everything, or Caroline has mistaken patience for weakness. I almost laughed through the sting in my eyes. That sounded exactly like him. The letter was dated 6 years earlier, after a brief hospital stay he had never fully discussed. At the time he claimed it was just routine. Apparently routine had inspired preparation. He wrote that he loved Caroline deeply, but he no longer trusted her judgment where money was concerned. He described loans quietly repaid, credit cards hidden from me. A business idea he funded once and regretted twice. A forged signature attempt on a small insurance release form that he chose not to prosecute because shame might teach what punishment cannot. It had not. My hands trembled. There was more. Harold had restructured several holdings years before his death. Properties I believed were solely his had been transferred into layered trusts and entities, designed to bypass chaos, predatory claims, impulsive heirs, and legal pressure. He ended the letter plainly. You always understood value better than anyone around us. If trouble comes, trust your instincts over blood. And then one final line, P.S. The river parcel is worth far more than anyone knows. I stared at that sentence for a long time. The river parcel. 30 acres outside town, half wooded, half scrubland, inherited through Harold's uncle. Caroline used to mock it as mosquito acreage. She assumed it was sentimental leftovers. Apparently so had I. I called Marian before breakfast. She listened without interruption. Then she said, "Bring everything." Her office was unusually quiet that morning. She read the letter once, then again, then handed it to an associate who nearly choked on his coffee at the trust documents. "How much is the parcel worth?" I asked. Marian looked amused. "That depends whether you value it as forgotten land or future development. I assume those numbers differ. By several zeros." I sat back. Harold, even dead, was still capable of surprising me. She explained that a planned bypass road and utility expansion near the river had changed the parcel's value dramatically over the past 3 years. Developers had been sniffing around through intermediaries. "Has Caroline known this?" I asked. "Not from these documents. But if she's heard rumors, that may explain urgency." I thought of her phrase on the patio, because it should be mine, not grief, not family, leverage, land. Marian closed the folder. "We now possess something better than defense." "What?" "Options." That afternoon, she arranged for a private investigator to map Caroline's financial exposure more fully. The phrase sounded theatrical, but the man who arrived was not. Thomas Reed wore an inexpensive suit and eyes that missed nothing. "I don't do drama," he said. "Good," I replied. "My daughter does enough for everyone." By Friday, he returned with a concise report. Caroline was 6 months behind on a private note tied to the failed investment. Her brokerage commissions had fallen sharply. 2 credit cards were near maxed. A boutique lender had secured claims against future receivables. And there was a lawsuit risk involving client escrow timing that could damage her license. "She needs liquidity," Thomas said. "She needs discipline," I answered. He nodded respectfully. "Usually both." That evening, Caroline called from an unknown number. I answered by mistake. "Mom." Her voice was softer than usual, stripped of performance. "What do you want?" "I want peace. Peace is available, distance is free," she exhaled shakily. "I made mistakes." A new costume, repentance. "Which ones?" I pushed too hard. Specificity would help. I was scared. "Of debt?" I asked. Silence. Then a small, sharp intake of breath, so she did not know how much I knew. "I don't know what Daniel told you." "Enough," she began crying. Real tears this time, or an excellent imitation. "You have no idea how much pressure I'm under." "No," I said. "You preferred pressure to honesty. I was going to fix it. With my house, it wouldn't have come to that. Then why were you promising people family property?" She stopped crying instantly. "How did you hear that?" "Truth travels too," her voice hardened. "You've turned everyone against me." "No, Caroline." "Consequences did," she whispered. "Please." That single word nearly reached the old instinct in me. Nearly. Then I remembered the agency letter in my mailbox. "You tried to have the state question my sanity. I panicked. You strategized. I'm your daughter." "Yes," I said. "And you used it as a tool." When I ended the call, I sat in the dark kitchen longer than usual. Motherhood can survive many wounds, but repeated use turns it thin. Sunday brought another surprise. Elaine appeared at my door holding a pie and shame. "I deserve whatever you say," she began. "Then come in before I say it outside." She laughed nervously and entered. We sat with coffee while the pie remained untouched. "She lied to all of us," Elaine said. "She selected truths and arranged them. That's still lying." "Yes." Elaine twisted a napkin. "She told me you forgot to pay taxes. I paid them early. She said you left the stove on twice. I do not even cook with gas. She said men were visiting." That one made me smile. "I wish she'd named them. It would brighten my week." Elaine laughed, then cried unexpectedly. I'm sorry, June. We wanted an easy explanation. Older woman alone, grieving, acting stubborn. It fit. People love patterns more than people. She nodded. What will you do with Caroline? The question hung there. I don't know yet. But that was not fully true. Part of me knew. I just had not accepted it. Monday morning, Marion called with another development. A developer made an unsolicited approach through counsel regarding the river parcel. How much? She named a number so large I asked her to repeat it. Then again, I had expected comfort. Not transformation. You could sell, she said, or lease. Or wait, what would you advise? I advised deciding nothing while emotional. I'm not emotional. You are discussing betrayal and 8 figures in the same week. Fair enough. Then she added, there is another path. What path? Use the parcel strategically. I knew that tone. What does that mean? It means if Caroline believes inheritance solves everything, we can show her what happens when inheritance becomes conditional. By Wednesday. She had prepared something extraordinary. A family trust amendment tied to conduct, fraud, coercion, elder abuse claims, and documented harassment. Any beneficiary engaging in such acts could be reduced to a nominal distribution. $1 if I wished. I read it twice. Can I do this? With proper drafting and capacity, absolutely. I signed nothing that day, but I took the documents home. That evening Caroline arrived again, pale and thinner than before. No makeup, no armor, just exhaustion. I need to talk. We've done that badly many times. She stood on the porch wringing her hands. They're coming after me. Who? Lenders. I said nothing. She looked up with desperate eyes. If I lose my license, I lose everything. You built that structure. Mom, please. There are moments when a child becomes young again in front of you, no matter their age. I saw 12-year-old Caroline after breaking the lamp, looking for rescue, but lamps are cheap, lives are not. What exactly are you asking for? I said. A bridge, just temporary. I can repay you after closings. How much? She named a number that would once have shocked me. Now it merely saddened me. And what security would you offer? I'm your daughter. I opened the door wider, not to invite her in, but so she could hear the clock in the hallway, ticking, steady, unmoved. That answer, I said quietly, expired months ago. She began to cry again, and for the first time I closed the door while she was still speaking. For 3 days after I closed the door on Caroline, the house felt lighter. Not happier, lighter. There is a difference. Happiness arrives singing. Lightness arrives when something heavy leaves quietly. I gardened. I paid bills. I attended bridge. I had lunch with Elaine, who now apologized in installments. Daniel sent flowers with a card that read, "For underestimating you." I kept the flowers and the apology. But peace rarely survives long when desperation still knows your address. On Thursday morning, Marion called. She filed. I set down my coffee. What now? Civil complaint. Claims of undue influence, emotional isolation, and interference with expected inheritance. I blinked once. Expected inheritance. Yes, Marion said dryly. A phrase courts enjoy less than television does. I almost laughed. She is alleging that I, your attorney, manipulated you into changing estate plans and denying her emergency assistance. She asked for money after accusing me of incompetence. Excellent. Keep saying true things. What does she want? Immediate access to records, injunctions against asset transfers. And pressure. Can she win? No. Then why file? Because losing slowly can still extort settlements. That was Caroline in a sentence. Marion continued, I'll answer aggressively, but there is something else. What? She attached an affidavit. From whom? A pause. Elaine, my chest tightened. She what? Old statement. Signed months ago, before reconciliation. It says you seemed forgetful and emotionally unstable after Harold's death. I closed my eyes. Even healed betrayal leaves teeth marks. I'll speak to her, Marion said. No, I replied. I will. Elaine arrived within an hour, white-faced and shaking. I didn't know she'd use it, she said before sitting down. She asked you to sign. She said it was just to encourage medical help, I swear it. Did you read it? Not carefully. Of course not. Convenience rarely reads carefully. Tears filled her eyes. I was wrong, I know I was wrong. Yes, I said calmly, you were. She reached for my hand. I let her touch it this time. What can I do? Tell the truth under oath. She nodded immediately. I will, and I believed her. Growth often arrives late and looking embarrassed. The next week became paperwork, depositions scheduled, financial disclosures resisted. Letters exchanged in language polite enough to disguise blood. Marian thrived in it. One evening, she visited my home with 2 binders and the expression of a woman about to enjoy herself professionally. We have a problem for Caroline, she said. Only one. Several, but my favorite is chronology. She opened a binder. She began telling people you were declining before any alleged outsider entered your life. Another tab. She sought bank access before legal counsel appeared. Another. She explored real estate valuations before requesting medical evaluations. Another. She requested money after filing claims of your incapacity. I stared at the pages. When listed like that, it sounds obvious. It is obvious, Marian said. Predatory behavior often is. People just dislike naming it. Then she handed me one final document, Dr. Pierce's completed report. Competent, independent, no evidence of cognitive impairment. Evidence of targeted relational stress. I smiled slowly. That phrase again. It's elegant, Marian said, and devastating. Deposition day arrived gray and rainy. I wore navy. Harold always said navy makes liars nervous. Caroline entered the conference room in cream silk and controlled breathing. She looked expensive and frightened. Good. Her lawyer was a handsome man with the tired eyes of someone billing by the hour for a bad client. We were sworn in. Questions began. Marian started gently. When did you first become concerned about your mother's memory? After my father died. Specific month? I don't recall. Interesting. She slid over an email. This is from 6 months before your father's death. You wrote, once Dad passes, Mom won't know how to handle any of it. Is that your email? Caroline stiffened. Yes, so concerns predated grief. I meant finances, yet you later cited memory. I was worried generally. Marian nodded as though helping. Of course. Let's discuss the bank inquiry. Caroline glanced at her lawyer. I only wanted information. Did you tell the bank your mother was confused? I may have said overwhelmed. Sandra's written notes were introduced. Client daughter states mother is forgetful and needs future access. Caroline swallowed. I don't remember saying that. Marian smiled. Memory can be tricky. Even the court reporter nearly smiled. Then came the patio video. No amount of silk helps when your own voice condemns you. Because it should be mine. The room changed after that. Confidence drained from her shoulders visibly. Her lawyer requested a break. Denied. Then Marian produced the church witnesses, the agency complaint timeline, Daniel's affidavit, Elaine's correction, and records of Caroline's debts relevant to motive. Her lawyer objected repeatedly. He sounded less convinced each time. Finally, Marian asked the question that silenced everyone. Ms. Bennett, if your concern was your mother's well-being, why did you request personal funds for your debts rather than professional caregiving for her needs? Caroline's lips parted. No sound came. Then she cried, real tears this time. I was drowning, she whispered. Marian's voice softened, but only slightly. That may explain pressure. It does not explain conduct. The deposition ended 2 hours later. Outside in the corridor, Caroline approached me alone. Mascara smudged, pride broken open. Please make this stop. You began it. I'll withdraw everything. You should. I said I'm sorry. I looked at my daughter carefully. There are apologies for pain and apologies for failure. This was the second kind. For what exactly? I asked. She stared at the carpet. For everything. No, I said, name it. Her voice cracked. For lying, for pushing, for trying to scare you. For thinking I deserved what wasn't mine. That was closer. I nodded once, then walked past her. That evening Marian called. She'll settle. What does that mean? Dismissal with prejudice, repayment of fees, retractions where practical. no contact provisions if desired, and if I refuse settlement, we continue to judgment. Publicly, I stood by Harold's photo while rain moved across the windows. What would you do? I would ask what outcome heals more than it entertains. Annoyingly wise. The next morning, Caroline left a handwritten note in my mailbox. No drama, no lawyers, no excuses. Please let me see you once more as your daughter, not your enemy. I read it twice. Then placed it beside Harold's letter. By afternoon, I knew what I wanted. Not revenge, not reunion, something harder, truth with boundaries. I called Marion. Prepare the settlement, I said. And afterward, I replied, I'm changing the future one final time. The settlement was signed 12 days later. Caroline dismissed every claim with prejudice, meaning she could not bring them again. She agreed to pay a substantial portion of my legal fees through structured installments. She signed a statement, acknowledging that allegations regarding my incapacity were unsupported. She agreed to cease contacting my bank, physicians, insurers, neighbors, clergy, and any third party for the purpose of discussing my competence or finances. Marion also added something she called the dignity clause. No unannounced visits, no entry onto my property, no use of my name in fundraising, borrowing, guarantees, or promises. When Marion read that section aloud, I said, You missed one. What? No dramatic tears in public spaces. She smiled for the first time like an ordinary woman. We can imply it, Caroline signed without argument. That was how I knew she was truly beaten, not because she lost, because she no longer believed performance could save her. When it was over, she asked quietly, May I speak to my mother alone? Marion looked at me. I nodded once. We used a smaller conference room. No audience, no lawyers, no witnesses. Just a table, 2 chairs, and the daughter I had once rocked through fevers. Caroline sat across from me with both hands folded tightly. I don't know how I became this person. Yes, you do, she lowered her eyes. I was scared all the time. Many people are scared, they do not all become cruel. Tears gathered but did not fall. I thought if I could just get through the debts, fix the mess, hold things together, then I'd make it right. You meant repay money, not repair trust. She nodded faintly. That too, I studied her face. Without anger, she looked older. Without strategy, smaller. I loved you, she said. I know. I love you now. I know that too. She looked surprised. Then why does it feel like you hate me? Because love without trust feels like rejection to people who misuse it. She cried then, quietly and without theater. For the first time in many months, I believed the tears belonged to her rather than to an audience. Can this ever be fixed? She asked. I answered honestly. Not today. She wiped her face. What happens now? You live with what you chose, then perhaps you choose differently. When I stood to leave, she whispered, Will you cut me out completely? I paused at the door. No, hope flickered across her face too quickly. Then I finished. But what remains will depend on who you become without expecting reward. I left her there with silence, which was kinder than false comfort. 2 weeks later, I signed the final estate documents. Marion reviewed each page with her usual precision. The river parcel was placed into a charitable land trust with income rights benefiting scholarships, local conservation, and a women's business grant fund in Harold's name. My home would remain mine for life. After my death, it would be sold and proceeds divided according to new terms. Daniel received a meaningful share. Elaine received a smaller one, enough to remember carelessness has cost. Several long-time charities were included. Caroline remained a beneficiary, but not of wealth. She would receive $1 and a letter. Are you certain? Marion asked. Yes, $1 can be read as symbolic hostility. It is symbolic clarity, she nodded. And the letter, that matters more. Months passed. Peace became ordinary again. I replanted the side garden. I repainted the kitchen. I joined a travel group for widows who were far more entertaining than they sounded. Elaine learned to call before offering opinions. Daniel visited on Sundays and fixed things that were not broken just to be useful. Caroline wrote 3 times. The first letter was full of sorrow. The second was full of explanations. The third was short. I got a job outside real estate. I'm in debt counseling. I'm not asking for anything. I hope you are well. That one I answered, I am well. Continue. We did not reconcile in a cinematic rush. There were no embraces in rainstorms, no speeches in restaurants, no miraculous holidays. There were coffees, awkward walks, careful conversations. Long pauses where manipulation once lived. She rented a modest apartment, sold handbags she could not afford, took work she considered beneath her. Learned the price of groceries, late buses, and humility. These were excellent teachers. One autumn afternoon, nearly a year after the settlement, she came to the house carrying a toolbox. The back gate sags, she said. I know. I can fix it. Can you? I can learn, so she did, poorly at first, then better. We worked side by side tightening hinges, while leaves moved across the yard herald, once raked in military lines. At one point she said, without looking at me, I used to think inheritance was love made visible. I kept holding the gate steady. And now I think entitlement is hunger pretending to be grief. That was the wisest thing she had ever said. I glanced at her. And love, she swallowed. Love is what stays after reward is removed. We finished the repair in silence. When winter came, I had a mild fall on ice in the driveway. Nothing broken, only bruised pride. Caroline arrived at the hospital because Daniel called her. She did not take charge. She did not speak for me. She asked, "What do you need?" I almost laughed. Progress can be so simple. "A ride home," I said. She drove carefully. At the house she carried in my bag, made soup badly, and left before overstaying kindness. Years later, when I finally died at 82, they read the will in Mr. Hargrove's old office, though he himself had long retired. Marian attended by request. Daniel cried openly. Elaine sniffled theatrically but sincerely. Caroline sat very still. When the distributions were explained, no one was shocked except those who still believed blood alone should profit. Then Marian handed Caroline the sealed letter. She opened it with trembling fingers. My daughter, I left you $1 because money was the language that nearly destroyed us, and I wanted no confusion. What I hope to leave instead is harder to spend. You were loved before you earned it. You were forgiven before you asked. You were welcomed back only after you changed. If you continue changing, you may yet become richer than anyone in this room. The rest of your inheritance was given while I was alive. It was the chance to become honest. Love, Mother. No one spoke for a long time. Then Caroline folded the letter carefully and pressed it to her chest. Some losses empty us, others make room.